In the southwest of Western Australia, one of the region's longest rivers, the Blackwood, begins its journey high in the Shire of West Arthur. Before whitefellas arrived on the Blackwood in the early 1830s, the local Aboriginal people referred to the river and its surrounds as Gee-Gellup, a place where a species of freshwater crustacean called gilgies was found. Whitefellas would later rename the river the Blackwood in honour of Sir Henry Blackwood, whom is said fought in the Battle of Trafalgar in 1805. As the Blackwood meanders its way through hills, valleys, forests and farmlands on its 350-kilometre journey to the Southern Ocean, it also passes through several small towns and settlements. It was the Blackwood that not only allowed the early settlers to grow crops and provide them with portable drinking water, it also enabled them to barge their produce to other small towns and settlements dotted along the river. One of the many timbers sought to help build the towns and settlements was referred to as Wandoo, reputed to be one of the hardest timbers in Australia, while termite resistant and impervious to water borers. The name Wandoo came from the local Aboriginal people, which later became the only eucalyptus in Australia, where the Aboriginal name was used for its Latin description, Eucalyptus wandoo. Almost half a century later, it was the introduction of the locomotive that would dramatically change the way commerce and trade was conducted in the region. Prior to the arrival of the locomotive, the timber sawyers who previously depended on teams of bullocks and horse-drawn trams to haul their logs from the Wandoo Forest now had horse and bullock teams rolled into one, while the forest also provided the wooden sleepers to build the railway line. As more towns and settlements flourished along the Blackwood, Wandoo was not only used to build railway lines, bridges, houses, schools, places of worship, stockyards, fences and furniture, it also became an important trading commodity for struggling settlers. By the late 1800s, Wandoo's reputation as one of Australia's finest hardwoods began to spread overseas, and it didn't take long for merchants in the coastal towns of Bunbury, Busselton and Fremantle to etch out a living for exporting the timber overseas. Of course, the problem was how to get the Wandoo, which grew many miles inland, to the coastal towns to export overseas. Most of the infrastructure was already in place. Sawyers to fell the trees, railway lines and locomotives to haul the logs to the mills, and roads and bridges to take the timber by truck to coastal jetties to load onto waiting ships. However, it was the bridges built across the rivers and creeks in the early days of white settlement that would become a stumbling block in getting the lumber to the coast. for most were built to support the weight of a horse and cart and not locomotives, heavily laden with Wandoo. The Asplin Bridge, built over the Blackwood River in the Shire of West Arthur in 1903, is a classic example of colonial engineering and architecture in its determination to open up the region for trade and commerce. Built from magnificent Wandoo, the bridge evokes a time when engineers, sawyers, farmers, carpenters, blacksmiths, surveyors and carters descended on this location on the Blackwood River to build one of many such structures to ensure lumber would safely reach the coast for export overseas to America, South Africa, India and Europe. Before whitefellas arrived on this land, the Wandoo Forest of the southwest of Western Australia covered an area of approximately 350,000 hectares. Fast forward nearly 200 years and most of the original Wandoo Forest is gone, except for a few isolated postage stamp sized reserves. So it was decided the safest and quickest way to get the Wandoo to the coast was to build a series of sturdy wooden bridges across the numerous rivers and creeks that snaked across the landscape to the coast. And what better timber to build these bridges than from Wandoo? Meanwhile, any Wandoo outside of reserves is still being logged, bulldozed for bauxite mining or cleared for agriculture. The building of the Asplin Bridge over the Blackwood River is testament to a time when early white settlers placed real value on our native timbers. The question is, will the Asplin Bridge over the Blackwood River be protected as a historical site of significance, or is it destined to go the same way as the Wandoo Forest that once gave it to us?